This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz. Very excited to speak with Stephanie Laing about Toe. How are you, Stephanie?
I am very good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I remember that we had spoken in the past, but I wasn't sure exactly for what, because I think the first time we talked about Made for Love, the second time Physical, and in between those two conversations, you made your previous film, Family Squares. So it's nice to see that you're so busy that it doesn't really matter what we're talking about. There's always a lot of stuff that you're up to and busy with.
Yes, no, I feel very lucky. I've been super busy and doing some really fun stuff. So yeah, very happy.
Well, you've done so much TV and not nearly as much film. What was it about this film that got you over to this world, away from all the TV?
Well, I had been looking for the right story for a while, and then I was sent the script. Brent Stiefel, who is one of the producers who lives in Seattle and knows Amanda, had sent me the script, and I just fell in love with her story, and I knew I had to tell it. And I think so often we read things and it's not for us, but this was like 5 pages in, I was like, no, I have to tell her story. I have to find a way, and I just, I couldn't not tell it.
When you're working with a true story, how important is it for you to remain loyal to what actually happened or to sort of adapt things for dramatic purposes?
Well, thankfully, like the script, they already had the script, and so it had kind of already been adapted, for what was best on screen, and kind of some kind of consolidation of the things that happened to Amanda. But I did do a lot. I mean, it's very important to me that it feels authentic, and I did a lot of research with Amanda, with Avery, Kevin, the attorney, and I spoke quite often. I think in the script, the original script, he hadn't like really made any mistakes, and I was like, but you, it was like one of your first cases, you did make a mistake, right? And that's when he told me about filing in the wrong court. And so you know that's how that evolved. And frankly, the ending of the movie is something that also really happened to Amanda. That was not scripted, and she just happened to be on set the day we were shooting the ending of we were shooting the scene where she gets her car back, and she was like, it didn't start for 4 hours. And it's like, wait. So Rose and I had said, well, no, well, that's how the movie ends then.
It's obviously not new for you to be working with Rose. I'm a big fan of Physical and very happy to see, her in this role, which I think she's perfect for in a lot of ways and also feels a little bit different from some of what she does otherwise. Uh, what is it like working with someone that you're so familiar with to play a different kind of part?
Well, I think at the time that I read the script, I also like knew I had to make it. I also knew it had to be Rose, and thankfully she agreed. And we sent the script to her, and then Annie Weisman, who created Physical, did a rewrite for Rose, sort of in more in her voice. And for me, it was just exciting to. She's just so fearless as an actress, and just there's nothing she won't just take on and be fully committed to. And I was so impressed by that. And obviously she met the real Amanda. And then Rose and I were like, well, we're off on this journey together to tell this woman's story. And I just think she makes the best micro expressions out of anyone I've ever seen. And you love her no matter what she does. There was just no one more perfect to play Amanda. And frankly, like really wanting Rose like to have this Aaron Brockovich moment. We just haven't seen her play, anyone based on a real person, except to me. I think she did like in the TV series she did for FX, but yeah.
Yeah, and this is obviously a big ordeal and something that we feel a lot for this character, but it also feels like an enjoyable film in many ways. Would you call it sort of a comedy in some senses?
Yeah, I would say that it feels hopeful. Like I really didn't want it to feel bleak and too depressing. I mean, it is like very upsetting and very bleak at times. The real story is that. But I also feel that like I'm very attracted to stories that are character driven, and the characters themselves are funny. They're the way they behave in certain situations. And so for me, the light humor coming from this movie is just true to the characters, and true to real life. It's like some of the most absurd things are said in the worst circumstances.
You also have a pretty incredible cast. Some of them have like these tiny roles that you would be surprised that you have these people involved. Are people just very excited to be able to work with you and to do this? It's pretty very, very impressive.
Yeah, we know. I think that like casting was in many ways like such an easy part of this, just because again, I think everyone fell in love with Amanda's story, and then we all felt a sense of urgency to tell this kind of story, um, and then really trust each other. So it just became such a collaborative process where everybody elevated the material, and then we sort of jumped off, the cliff together, and like we're like, okay, let's do it. It was honestly such a trusting environment, and the cast were, I mean, every single one of them just brings it, you know. And some of them in ways we haven't seen them before, like Simon Rex, you know, we usually see him in a completely different kind of role, and this was very different.
It's also difficult to separate this film from If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, given that Rose is also like so prominent. And that one, I think, is definitely more serious leaning in a lot of ways. But these two sort of powerhouse performances that you're talking about, you know, the micro expressions on her face, like that film is all that. Have you had a chance to see the film?
No, I'm so excited to see the film. I can't wait to see it, and super excited for Rose and for Mary, you know, who directed it. And so I think they shot that right before we shot this, and probably around like kind of like around the same schedule, you know, the same amount of time to film it in. So yeah, very different performances, but there's, I mean, some similarities, but I think one film obviously is just different tonally, right?
I know obviously there were some real life, you know, a lot of real life legal steps, you know, for this case. Was there any resistance to getting this film made from anybody? Is there still somebody that, you know, thinks they're the good guy in this story when they're definitely not?
Um, I think that like no, in terms of no, I don't think so. Like I think I'm pretty sure the people that are the bad guys know they're the bad guys, right? And I think for us, you know, look, we shot in 19 days, so it was like a resistance, not maybe from the legal side, but just you know, as with every indie movie, you know, they're hard to put together, and at a certain point, you're just like pushing the rock up the hill and determined to tell the story. And I think like Rose and I were like, we're not going to let Amanda down. We will tell the story. Um, and in fact, like we had a lot of women, like financiers, come in to put money in who also felt the urgency of like, we have to tell this story and we're going to give you money. And some of it was like some like small increments of like $25,000, just like really wanted to support the movie.
And the last film you made was obviously right at the height of COVID, and it's been a little bit, you know, before that. How has, you know, the world of film changed as you've been so focused on TV?
It's hard for me to say because I've, you know, this is the third film I made, and obviously the COVID movie I was kind of started off as a little bit of a bet, you know, a bet or a dare for my manager when I said if I was Steven Soderbergh, I'd be sending cameras to everybody, and he said, "Why don't you?" And then 6 weeks later, we were shooting something that was very much an experiment from my living room, and then you know some scenes in person. And so for me, this one just felt like I learned a lot about um, myself and like my taste and the way I want to tell stories. And in fact, like really challenged myself visually working with the DP, Vanya Sturgill, to not move the camera in an unmotivated way. And that is a lot of what physical does. And so we're just trying to craft like new languages visually. And so, and also I think like learned for me as a filmmaker, like to fight, like to protect the health of the movie at all costs, you know?
Well, I know you still have had some time to work on TV this past season with Interior Chinatown, The Better Sister, and Your Friends and Neighbors, which feel like three very, very completely different projects. And the one that excites me most is Your Friends and Neighbors, because as you may remember, I'm a big fan of Banshee, which we talked about
Yeah.
being completely unlike anything you have done otherwise. That said, Your Friends and Neighbors is certainly more in line. That's also very much unlike Banshee. What is it like getting to reteam with Jonathan and Greg?
Honestly, with Jonathan today, I'm actually on the set of season 2 of Your Friends and Neighbors right now. So I'm directing 6 episodes this season and an executive producer. And so, yeah, it's a very, very fun. Jonathan is proper as one of the producers on the movie. Um, and really such a challenge in a unique and fun way to go from something that's like it's Apple TV Plus, where you know obviously the budget is higher and you have a lot of support from very good, fantastic creative people at Apple, than to the indie world where you're like, all right, we have very little money. We have 19 days. We're going to go to Seattle for almost less than 24 hours. And and in the movie, every single shot we did in Seattle is in the film. So, but very happy to be back on Your Friends and Neighbors. And Jonathan Chopper was also a producer on Family Squares. So we like to collaborate.
Is there anything you can preview about season two of that show without getting someone in trouble?
I was just saying, it's crazy. That's all I can say.
Do you have plans to do another film at any point in the near future?
I do. I'm really hoping to put one together for the fall. We shall see. There's a few things percolating. I've written something for the first time. It's like, I mean, I did some writing on Family Squares, but this one is the first thing I've written entirely myself. So I'm excited to try to get that off the ground.
Do you find that to be a challenge or a welcome opportunity to write your own stuff?
I just Actually, it's a story I know really well, and so it flowed out a lot faster than I thought it would, and it was very cathartic and in some ways therapeutic. And yeah, it feels very rewarding to get that out there. So I'm excited to see the response to that, and fingers crossed, be able to be on set making that this fall.
Right. Well, you're very busy, so I'm not sure how much time you have to watch anything, but is there anything you've seen, film or TV lately that's really stuck with you?
God, I really liked Department Q. Is that's on Netflix? I really was like so drawn in. I binged all like episodes in 2 days. Like I think I was a zombie in front of my television. I just really liked the way they shot that, and I love that the main actor, Matthew Good. He's just fantastic. So yeah, that's my most recent thing that I became obsessed with.
I haven't seen it yet, but you're not the first person today to say that, so I feel like
Really?
I need to get on that
Yeah.
soon.
Well, and I just recently watched Dog Day Afternoon, so I went back to the classics, film wise. So
Well, I'm so happy to see that you're so busy working on so many great things, and I wish you lots of luck with Toe and with this passion project of yours, and look forward to seeing much of your work to come soon.
yeah, you too. Thank you so much for chatting with me. Really appreciate it.